A sharp sword was pointed at the heroine's throat, and the man holding it asked why the girl did it. The young girl looked at the stern blonde man and thought that he was cute. The heroine said that only now the man looks at her with a look like a burning flame. The girl with pink hair looked away and added that the man looked the same way he looked at that woman. This was the person about whom the heroine thought that she would never get her hands dirty. The blonde did nothing but squeeze tears out of herself, causing pity in everyone around her. The man covered the eyes of the kind and weak Charlotte with his hand so that she would not look at the execution of the main character. The man with the sword told Isla Mertenzia that because she had stained her hands with magic, the entire Mertenzia clan had been wiped out. Overcoming the sharp pain in her left shoulder, the heroine raised her head up and, looking at the man, grinned. The young girl grabbed the sword in both hands and exclaimed that she was cursing the man. The blonde froze when Isla said that the man would be cursed and he would have no choice but to love her. As soon as the girl was killed, Charlotte said with a tremor in her voice that the knights had promised to finish off the Villainess painlessly. The man said that the girl was shaking so much but still continued to worry about someone. But what was the difference between Charlotte and Isla that everyone consoled the blonde, and the heroine had to go through hell at the last minute? The young girl jumped out of bed abruptly when someone shouted that they should already do something so as not to hear the barking of the dogs. The main character casually wiped her mouth with her hand to wipe off her drool. Brushing her teeth, the heroine thought why that beautiful girl who appeared in her dream died so cruelly. The main character wanted the girl with pink hair to lose her life only after fulfilling all the desires in the world. However, the young girl should not have done this and thought about such a thing at all. The main character opened her eyes and was horrified when she realized that she was in an unfamiliar place and not in her body. Yoon Hanul was the author of a novel, in which she herself got as the main villain. The main character remembered perfectly well that she wrote this novel 10 years ago. The aristocrats, looking at Isla, noticed that completely identical clothes could make such a different impression. The main character squeezed the hem of her dress and mentally asked people to stop reminding her of the dark past. The aristocrat said that who would have thought that a girl's outfit could match another lady's outfit so perfectly. At the same moment, Berner appeared in front of the audience with Charlotte arm in arm. The blonde smiled as soon as the audience began to whisper who this lady was. The main character covered her eyes with her hand as soon as people compared Charlotte to a lily. The aristocrats began to say that some of them, alluding to Isla, looked completely opposite. The main character remembered perfectly well that now these girls would say that she looked like a real witch. As soon as the young girl returned to the Mertenzia estate, the heroine collapsed on the bed, not understanding why she had become a villain. The main character has only memories of how she lived like a gullible fool. Suddenly, the young girl remembered exactly what the last words the villainess had said before her death. The maids looked dumbfounded at the mistress when she exclaimed that she could not die like that. The main character decided that she would not live like a villain and went to the library where there were many books. The young girl was well aware that she did not need to meet the main characters of the novel. Isla's great advantage was her unsurpassed beauty. However, appearance did not matter due to the status of the villain. Yoon Hanel dreamed of starting to live as an unemployed woman with a huge amount of money, and now her dream has finally come true. However, for the main character, it was completely different level. The young girl suggested that the reason was that she was a villain. Unfortunately, even the atmosphere of the 7 main characters was not ideal. The father did not pay attention to his daughter, and the older brother named Aslan had a very bad relationship with Ayla. Every time Aslan met his younger sister, the man just walked past the girl. The relationship of the young people was ideally similar to the relationship of a real brother and sister. The main character opened the book and enthusiastically said that the writer Rinta is the best. The girl asked her maid if the collector's edition of the writer Rinte, ordered by her, would arrive tomorrow. The main character was very happy when the maid confirmed the information. When the young girl first read the writer's novels, she immediately discovered a whole new world for herself. The main character enthusiastically said that she wanted to kidnap this person. A girl with pink hair looked at the eclipse through her bedroom window. The total solar eclipse in the novel of the main character was called Phalangia. The Lede Empire, in which the action unfolds, boasts of its strong imperial power. Killian, who became famous as an evil mage with the worst reputation in the world, destroyed an entire kingdom overnight. In fact, the main character just wanted to call this solar eclipse something cool. The next morning, Isla asked a maid to take Rinta's new books to her room. However, the maid informed the girl that the books that the lady ordered would be delivered tomorrow morning. As soon as Isla said that the girl had told her the same thing the day before, the maid said in confusion that she hadn't said it. In the hands of a young maid, the main character noticed today's newspaper. Isla took the newspaper and was very angry when she realized that yesterday was repeating itself. The man sitting on the throne called a young man named Luis to him. As soon as the hero asked if the guy knew what déjà vu was, Luis replied that it was a feeling that he had already experienced before. The black-haired man said that for some reason he felt this déjà vu very clearly and unpleasantly today. The main character became funny when she realized that she had gone back in time one day ago. The maid repeated that the limited edition of Rinta's best-selling book would be delivered tomorrow, and Isla went back to bed. The maid said in confusion that the young lady had just woken up, so there was no point in going to bed. However, when the next day the main character opened her eyes, a completely non-collector's edition of the writer Rinta was waiting for her. Isla was angry, so the maids fell to their knees and begged for forgiveness, as they believed that they were to blame for everything. The maids wept bitterly with fear and begged her mistress to spare them and not kill them, for they had families. The main character tiredly closed her eyes and, pursing her lips, mentally said that it was all too unrealistic. Although Isla understood that it was strange to look for reality after she found herself in a novel written with her own hand. The main character was well aware that the problem was her ignorance of the cause and therefore the solution. The young girl suggested that this was a hint that she should stop leading a reclusive life. However, Isla dismissed the thought and again assumed that the ruler of this world would soon fix it and everything would be fine. The main character came to the conclusion that she can enjoy the life of a rich unemployed living the same day. The next day, the maids began to fall to their knees again and begged the young lady with pink hair to spare them. A day later, everything happened again, which made the main character start to get angry. The same actions, as well as the words, continued day after day that the main character could no longer listen and watch. The young girl with pink hair smiled stiffly and assumed that she would never get the book she wanted. The fact that Isla continued to breathe at all in her revived dark past was only thanks to the writer Rinta. For 10 days, the main character went out and tried to walk along the road, but nothing helped. Isla realized that she apparently needed to meet the main characters of the novel in order to move on to the next day. From an overabundance of emotions, a young girl with pink hair swung the book she was holding in her hand. The main character exclaimed in irritation that he would simply go crazy in the near future in this way. The maid was horrified and began to cover herself with her hands when she noticed that the book was flying right into her face. Only when the paper edition got into the main character opened her eyes wide, realizing what she had just done. The young girl immediately noticed that the maid's head slowly began to drain scarlet blood. The maid sobbed in pain and fear, and the main character froze in place, not understanding what she should do now. The maid began to bow to the young mistress even more actively, and with tears in her eyes prayed that the girl would not kill her. The main character wanted to try to stop her personal maid, but realized that it was useless. The young man with a smile on his face told his master that perhaps something unusual would happen to them today. The black-haired man reminded him in a serious tone that he was going to kill Louis today. The young man stood still, realizing that it was the first time he had seen his master so angry, and he did not understand what was happening. Louis suggested that the gentleman drink a cup of tea to find peace in his heart. The black-haired man frowned and asked why he had such a great desire to kill his subordinate. Louis asked with a smile what he had done, but suddenly he stumbled and a cup of tea flew forward. However, the young man managed to grab the cup but didn't calculate, so all the liquid poured out directly onto the black-haired man. Everyone present in the room immediately froze and looked at their master in horror. Louis was confused and tried to justify himself, but nothing came to his mind. Then everyone began to fuss, saying that the gentleman urgently needed to bring ice, a change of underwear and pants. The black-haired man smirked and said that it wasn't just déjà vu after all, it had actually happened many times. Louis froze when the master stood up and said that the power over the management of time should be entirely in the hands of God. The black-haired man asked if there was a man whom God loved so much that he was ready to break his own laws. The hero smirked and suggested that personally twisting the neck of this person would be a manifestation of the highest etiquette. The maid screamed that she was to blame for everything, but asked that the young lady not kill her. The main character remembered that this was the maid who fainted after her friendly smile. Isla tried to calm the maid, but as soon as the girl touched her, the girl screamed at the top of her lungs. The main character felt irritation begin to appear inside her from the endless screaming. Isla exclaimed that if the maid didn't shut up right now, she would definitely eat her for dinner. These were the first words that came to the main character's mind, and they worked, because the maid immediately fell silent. The main character smirked, because only now she realized that this maid is a very unusual hero of her novel. The pink-haired girl approached her maid and said with concern that she would most likely have a scar. However, the main character came to her senses in time and told a maid named Dobiella that she would definitely leave traces of blood on the floor. The maid exclaimed that she was very stupid because she dared to stain the floor of her mistress's room. The main character woke up the next day and asked what time it was, to which she was told that it was already 1 o'clock. Isla was very surprised that it was so gloomy outside, because logically in the noose the fine clothes should not have changed. After a while, the main character could barely hold back tears, because a limited version of the book was finally delivered to her. The happiness of the young girl with pink hair knew no bounds, and Isla jumped around the room with joy. The main character's joy ended as soon as her older brother entered the room and asked what kind of disgrace was going on here. Aslan looked disdainfully at his younger sister and said that their father was calling them to him. The main character shuddered when her father put a cup of tea on the table with a crash. A young girl with pink hair did not understand at all what was happening in this room at all. Vincent Mertensia said with displeasure that he had been told how the girl had been behaving lately. The man wondered if the girl did not invent false diseases so as not to go to aristocratic meetings. The main character really hoped that her carefree life would not end like this. Vincent informed his daughter that he had decided to appoint a man to teach her. A raincoat man named Sebastian appeared in the room, and Isla's father said he had high hopes for him. The main character got up from her seat and asked why the strange man did not take off the mask from his face. Sebastian smirked because his theory was fully confirmed. Vincent asked what kind of cape the girl was talking about, since this man looked like a perfectly dressed butler. The main character realized that something was wrong here when her father told her that there was no flaw in the tutor. A man in a raincoat with a cheerful smile on his face said that apparently, in the girl's opinion, he looks completely different. For no reason, its main character felt a strong excitement growing inside her. Isla hurriedly said that when she looked at the man again, she realized that he fit all the criteria. The main character knew perfectly well that even great magicians could not use hypnosis whenever they pleased. A man in a raincoat stretched out his hand to the main character and said that in this case they need to go. The hero said that they would have enough time for him to teach the mistress everything before the start of the dance evening. The main character was horrified when the man added that he would do it even if the same day would not be repeated again and again. A young girl with pink hair realized that there was another person who knew about the time loop. The man pressed the girl against the wall and, approaching her ear, whispered if she could close her eyes for a while. The main character did so, and at the same moment she felt a small streak of blood left on her forehead. The young girl with pink hair immediately realized that this was a magical technique unknown to her. At the same time, a man in a cloak with a cunning smile on his face whispered some words that Isla did not understand. Next, the hero grabbed the main character by the neck, and the young girl felt all the trouble of this witchcraft. At the same moment, the blood prints on her face and neck began to glow like bright flames. The sorcerer grinned because his next spell had worked successfully. The man stopped when he heard a voice saying that the mistress should not walk alone in such places. The knight asked His Majesty what they should do in this situation. The blonde prince pulled his cloak lower over his face and ordered the soldier to just ignore it. The man pursed his lips as a woman's voice began to scream to let her go immediately. The prince took off, not believing that it could be that woman again. With a few deft swings of his sword, the blonde man managed to defeat the villains. The prince said discontentedly, looking at the girl, that it was already becoming very suspicious that she was walking around unguarded here. The blonde with tears in her eyes apologized to the man, saying that it was the first time she had left her lands and ended up in the capital. The young girl approached the prince, saying that she was really very scared. In the next second, the blonde girl hugged her savior very tightly. The prince asked if the girl was not afraid of him since he had just personally killed people. The blonde man admitted that it was the first time he had seen such a woman in his life. The main character collapsed on the floor, and the sorcerer said that it was very unusual that a girl could not die from this. Isla asked if the man wanted to kill her because that day kept repeating itself. The sorcerer knelt down on one knee and said that he hadn't looked for someone for a long time, being so sure of his thoughts. The man said that it was because of the girl that he repeated one of his very unpleasant days several times. The sorcerer told the young lady that she must calm him down. A man in a raincoat grabbed the main character by the chin and said that the girl was definitely a person. However, the sorcerer was surprised that magic did not work on the young lady at all. The main character looked dumbfounded at the strange man when he started talking about magic. The sorcerer said that the mistress had such a reaction, as if she had seen something like this for the first time, although she often had to encounter such a thing. The main character covered her mouth with her hand, realizing that she had just given herself away. A man in a black cloak approached the young girl and said that he was very curious to know who she was. As soon as the sorcerer said that the mistress received a lot of love, Isla remembered the name of the deity that many worshipped. The main character asked if a god named Reserve really existed. The black-cloaked man looked at the young madam carefully and said that this was a very unexpected question. The sorcerer asked if this was what the young lady wanted to ask him. The man said that the lady was now proving the existence of this god with her whole body. For the main character, this was strange because although Isla was a disgusting villain, she did not have magic. The girl concluded that it all started after she moved into the body of the villain. The main character asked the sorcerer if the noose also began because of this god, and he replied that time is controlled by a higher power. Isla indignantly asked how the sorcerer could explain the repetition of the same day. The man said that the fact that one day continued to repeat itself over and over again speaks of the incredible efforts of the deity. The main character remembered the difference between the last day and those that were repeated and understood why the noose stopped. The deity wanted Isla to act according to the description in the novel and live like a terrible villain. The main character, with a crazy smile on her face, asked if this was not a real curse. The sorcerer froze, and Isla continued, saying that she just wanted to live an ordinary and unremarkable day. The main character confidently said that the deity had clearly cursed her. The cloaked man smirked as the young madam added that perhaps the god just wanted to torture her. The main character froze abruptly when the sorcerer began to laugh at the top of her voice after the words she said. The cloaked man wondered if this was one-sided love on the part of the deity. The main character looked at the sorcerer in surprise when he told her that he had changed his mind. The cloaked man asked the young lady if she had received any revelation from the deity. The main character honestly admitted to the man that she had not received anything lately. The sorcerer replied that this was to be expected from the Reserve, for a deity never even answered human prayers. The man took off the cloak from his head and added that people ask God to hear out of desire and be sure to fulfill. The sorcerer, with a grin on his face, asked who this unrequited god was then. The black-haired man admitted that he liked the young mistress very much, so he could say what he wanted. The main character looked incredulously at the man who promised that he would fulfill absolutely everything. The young lady chuckled, not believing that the strange man had said something like that to her. The sorcerer said that the girl received God's love, and he, on the contrary, was disappointed in his will. The man added that since the lady really hated the Reserve, then they could definitely become very good partners. The heroine replied irritably that she had already said that she did not receive any love, and the sorcerer suggested calling it interest. The man added that even if a girl does not receive love from God, they can follow the path of confrontation with the will of the Creator. The main character frowned, realizing that there was a grain of logic in the words of an unknown man. The sorcerer offered the mistress to sign a contract to betray this deity together. The black-haired man explained that the girl would find the life she wanted to live, and he would get rid of his hatred. The hero approached the girl closer and whispered that with such a simple contract, it would be easy to destroy the image of the god. The sorcerer was a monster who sucked people's happiness out of them, and Isla Mertensia had to live the life of a villain and die. The main character squeezed her dress hem, not understanding whether she should just die as a villain or sign a contract with the devil. The young girl unclenched her fists and asked if the black-haired man would be able to stop the noose in such a case. The sorcerer said that it was difficult, but they would be able to pluck the root of it in a completely unexpected direction. Isla crossed her arms over her chest and said how she could sign a contract with a man she didn't know his name or face about. The main character was confused when the sorcerer said that it was true about the name, but he did not understand why the face was not real. The young madam blushed thickly when she realized that this black-haired man's face was far from fake. Isla, confused, asked if it was not a spell, and the sorcerer gently took the lady's hand and reminded her that it had no effect on her. The black-haired man brought the main character's hand to his lips and said with a smile that this was not an illusion at all. The young lady wrenched her hand away and, breathing deeply, asked what the stranger's name was. The main character's eyes widened when the black-haired man revealed that his name was Killian. Isla did not understand why this man called the name of an evil sorcerer who lived before the 5th century. The main character suggested that these people just have the same names, with whom it is not easy to live in society. The black-haired man put his finger to his lips, and with a cunning smile on his face asked what the mistress's answer would be. The main character agreed because before Killian appeared, she was lonely that she wanted to escape. If someone controls Isla's life at will, then the girl will have no choice but to obey. The main character stretched out her hand to the man and offered to sign a contract in order to properly deal with the stupid deity. After a while, Killian said that if the lady held out for 10 minutes, he would allow her to read a book in her head. The main character began to mentally ask Charlotte for forgiveness for putting a corset on her. Most of all, Isla was covered with goosebumps from the fact that Killian was determined at first sight what she cherished the most. The main character asked in confusion how the black-haired man managed to find out that she was a fan of this book. Isla thought it was hypnosis, but Killian replied that he had only walked through the front door, and the Duke had already decided that he was the butler. The sorcerer said that it was more like a charm than hypnosis, because with this ability it was possible to find out the desires of people. The main character realized that Isla's father actually wanted his daughter to have a teacher and a butler as soon as possible. It was for this reason that the young lady was now studying the rules of etiquette at an accelerated pace. There was something that the main character missed when she agreed to sign a contract. Accepting Killian's offer meant that they would spend a lot of time together to exchange knowledge. The sorcerer asked if the girl had given up on her existence and got used to living like a beast. The man lightly touched Isla's waist and said that the mistress not only lacked any etiquette, but also had a terrible posture. The main character squeezed the hem of her dress when Killian said that the girl seemed to live in another world. The sorcerer said that although the lady did not know the state of affairs in the world, she should shake at the first mention of spells. Killian added that the most important thing was how the young lady ignored his name without expressing any concern. The main character said that she knows perfectly well this name of the evil sorcerer who destroyed the whole country 500 years ago. The black-haired man said thoughtfully that usually people can't even say his name out loud. Killian said that although he liked the way the girl criticized the deity, she herself should understand that she seemed strange. The main character looked away, because she understood the logic by which the sorcerer had now come to this conclusion. The black-haired man pulled away and, glancing at his wristwatch, reported that 10 minutes had already passed. Killian said that the girl may not say who she really is, because sooner or later he will find out everything himself. The main character understood that as soon as the man found out that she was the writer of the novel, death would overtake her. The girl understood that the sorcerer hated the local deity extremely much, and she could be considered the creator of this world to some extent. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door, and a woman's voice asked if the young lady was in the room. The main character took a step, but caught on the hem of her dress, but Killian managed to grab the girl by the waist in time. The man whispered in a low voice that he had to teach the mistress a lot, since it was so difficult for her to walk alone. The main character made a dissatisfied face and asked the man to let her go right away. As soon as Isla opened the door and saw the girl on the threshold, the black-haired man threw a gray cloak over himself. The maid said with delight that she knew that the lady would be with her new teacher in the room. The main character grinned because this girl came to her again. They were the type of people who were sycophants who wanted to take something for themselves. The main character smiled stiffly when the girl began to say that the beautiful mistress would now become even smarter. Isla stayed away from her studies and was uneducated, and the girl quickly succumbed to emotions. At the same time, the young lady behaved as soon as she heard the simple praise in her direction. Although the main character's face was covered in sweat, the maid said that she was incredibly shiny and looked like silk. The girl added that she had never seen anyone in her life who would have the same fantastic eye color. The maid said that this is why she chose dresses that would perfectly suit such a beautiful girl. The main character smiled stiffly while the girl continued to say that the mistress needed to take a look at the catalog from the workshop. Such hypocrites gathered around the simple and illiterate Ayla, who betrayed and used her, and she did not suspect anything. The girl now standing in front of the main character will also betray Isla, playing the biggest role in the destruction of the Mertenzia family. A personal maid named Sophie tearfully asked why the young mistress did not react in any way. The main character wanted to avoid this, but it was still difficult for her to push this girl away. Memories of a gullible fool named Yoon Hanul immediately crept into Ayla's head. The maid exclaimed that if Charlotte had not been there, His Majesty the Prince would have paid attention to the mistress. The main character approached Killian and grabbed his gray cloak a little with one hand. The black-haired man grinned because he realized that the girl wanted her to interfere in the conversation. Killian suggested aloud that the lady had behaved ugly towards her mistress, to which Sophie replied that this was understandable. The maid told the man that their mistress was incredibly in love with His Highness the Prince. The sorcerer smirked and immediately looked at the reaction of the main character. A young girl with pink eyes closed her eyes, showing with all her appearance that all these words were not true. Sophie said that everything went wrong because Lady Charlotte intervened in the course of events and ruined everything. The maid began to wipe away her tears, saying that it was time for the mistress to stop tormenting herself because of this wound of one-sided love. The main character flinched when Killian looked at her again and laughed even more. Sophie said that the mistress decided to deal with this by reading a book every day in the corner of the room, as if it were some kind of ruin. The maid handed Isla the catalog and said that the mistress would not need to worry anymore if she had these dresses. Sophie said that in their time, no one wears curtain-like folds on their backs. The maid said that dresses with the back of the skirt gathered to the figure will be popular this season. The main character remembered that Charlotte came up with this idea so that her dress would not get dirty when she walked. Prince Berner discovered this and recreated Charlotte's design with the help of the world's best tailor named Pollen. Soon this design became popular and all aristocrats without exception wore it at balls and parties. One day, Isla poured wine on Lady Charlotte's dress and said with a smirk that now the beautiful dress was ruined. The blonde girl was crying, but she told Lady Mertenzia that she was all right. The aristocrats began to whisper, but the prince appeared and said that it did not matter. The man said that it doesn't matter how many of them are needed, because they will always be able to sew a new dress. The prince began to calm Charlotte, saying that it was he who paid for the dress, so there was no need to worry. However, despite his words, the blonde man looked at Lady Isla very hostilely. At the time when the main character was writing this novel, the girl was obsessed with dresses, so such a story appeared. At that moment, the heroine did not know that wearing such dresses was so uncomfortable. In any case, at the next ball, which will be held very soon, Isla will again have to behave like a villain. A man's voice whispered softly in the girl's ear that apparently the mistress was thinking very hard about something. Killian asked if Isla didn't like these dresses, even though they were called the newest ones. The main character whispered in the sorcerer's ear that these dresses do not suit her at all and there are too many of them. The black-haired man said that saving was a perfect answer, worthy of the Duke's daughter. As soon as the young people realized that they had been standing close to each other for quite some time, they pulled away. Killian straightened his gray cloak and asked the young lady to speak to him informally. Isla covered her mouth with her hand when the sorcerer said that if anyone heard such an address to the butler, they would laugh. The black-haired man gently took the mistress's hand and said that it seemed to him that the girl wanted to discuss her many problems. Killian brought Isla's hand to his lips again and reminded the girl that they were sailing in the same boat. The main character looked at her personal maid and asked if Sophie wanted to go out for a while. Isla was confused when the maid tearfully told her that she did not understand why her mistress had come to hate her. Killian was tired of tolerating this, so he approached Sophie and said that apparently witch and stupid girl had become synonymous. The main character began to panic a little because she did not understand what the man was going to do now. Killian asked the maid if he and she were in the same boat. A black-haired man in a raincoat looked at the girl and asked what her name was. A blue-eyed maid revealed that her name was Sophie Beryl. The girl said that this name was given to her by her father so that she would always be very reasonable. The main character shuddered when Sophie began to shout that it would be better if her father gave her money and did not talk such nonsense. Isla realized that Sophie had just freely shown one of her sides, which she had continued to hide until now. Saying all this, the maid looked incredibly happy, which meant that this was Killian's personal ability. The main character froze as soon as the personal maid exclaimed in displeasure that her mistress was a... Sophie began to shout that it was very difficult for her to try to please the stupid young girl. The main character froze as soon as the maid said that she could not do anything to the prince because Isla was a fool. Sophie added mockingly that thanks to her mistress, she had satisfied many of her desires. The maid said that of course the young lady believed in the noodles she hung over her ears. Sophie said that she could take everything that was used by the mistress only once. Killian informed the maid that now the mistress would do everything she just wanted. The main character froze, because she did not understand at all what the sorcerer was talking about now. Sophie, with crazy eyes, told me that she had liked that sapphire necklace that the lady had worn last time. The girl grabbed Isla's hand and said that she wanted that delicate necklace made of black pearls. The main character pulled her hand away, and the maid said that she would like to get those lace gloves with a ring. A black-haired man in a gray cloak asked Isla what the mistress was going to do now. Killian reminded the main character that all decisions should be made only by her. The young girl was well aware that she, like Yoon Hanul, had no personal dislike for Sophie. Although the main character became the villainous Isla, she was still the fearful Yoon Hanul. At this moment, the girl's head was filled to the brim with the thought that she wanted to hide from everything again. Killian approached Isla and said that the girl had absolutely nothing to fear, because she already had nothing. The words hurt the girl's heart when the man said that the mistress had no interest from family, no love, no friend. The sorcerer said that the girl could do what she wanted without fear of interference, because she had absolutely nothing to lose. The black-haired man pointed to the girl's personal maid and asked if Sophie liked the young mistress. The main character did not understand what kind of separation method it was, and replied that of course she did not like it. When asked why, Isla replied that it was because the girl wanted to use her for her own personal purposes. Killian said that in the first version, the mistress can return it to Sophie 100 times and not give her a chance to show her courage again. The sorcerer offered the second option to remove the maid from this world forever. The main character realized that it would be better for her to just say that she would kick this girl out and not to choose something. Isla angrily replied that she was choosing the first option, and Killian said that they would determine the punishment later. The man said that the girl would no longer raise dogs that tear apart their owner. Killian grabbed Isla by both cheeks and demanded that the girl repeat his words, which the main character did. The main character understood that although Isla and she lived completely different lives, the living environment was similar. The girl assumed that none of them had a single normal person nearby. As soon as the black-haired man said that Sophie had something to say, Killian snapped his fingers. The maid was horrified as soon as she came to her senses and realized what she had just done, telling the whole truth. Sophie wanted to justify herself, but the main character with a smirk on her face said that she does not raise dogs that bite their owners. The maid screamed that it was a mere ridiculous misunderstanding and nothing more. At that very moment, Killian was actively whispering something in the main character's ear. Heroine, in Isla's face, asked if the maid really thought she wouldn't guess about the theft. The young lady said that she would not calm down even if Sophie cut her wrist, but she would give one last chance. The main character left the maid in the room and told her to obey, sit quietly and wait for her to come for her. Sophie looked at the young lady with all her undisguised hatred. The maid asked Isla what was going on, and the main character ordered the servants to take the girl to an underground prison. Sophie began to scream that the mistress could not do this to her when the knights grabbed the maid on both sides. The main character grinned and realized that she was experiencing such feelings for the first time. As soon as Isla was left alone with Killian, the man asked where to do that impudent girl who cursed God. The main character realized that she could no longer avoid answering this question, but she could not tell that she was the author. The young girl confessed to the man that she had come here from another world, and Killian calmly replied that he knew so. The main character looked at the man inquiringly and asked how he understood it at all. Killian explained that this was all because the girl had no sign of a high-ranking lady. As soon as the sorcerer asked where the true owner of the body had gone, the main character honestly replied that she could not know this. Suddenly, it dawned on the young girl that Isla's soul might have some problems, so she was now in this place. The black-haired man asked the girl to tell him everything she knew first. The main character said that, as a man has already said, she is a rather stupid girl. The girl said that if she did not behave like a villain, then, most likely, the noose would work again. Isla was well aware that she had to skillfully hide the truth from the man, so she reported that she had a vision. The main character told the man that she behaved like a villain, which is why the noose stopped, as well as about the incident at the ball. Killian chuckled and concluded that the noose the girl had mentioned would soon work again. The man asked why, out of a huge number of souls, God chose a girl to behave like a villain. As soon as the sorcerer said that the mistress had a completely different character, the main character realized that the man was very smart. The heroine in Isla's body said that not even a month had passed since she had arrived in this world, so she didn't know anything. The young girl froze as the black-haired man asked what the girl wanted. The main character replied in confusion that she just wanted the noose to finally stop. Killian told the lady that he could not use his powers on the one who came from another world. The black-haired man took off his gray cloak and said that he was ready to listen to the story of the young girl. The heroine in Isla's body asked the sorcerer to continue speaking after the man turned off his seduction. Killian put the cloak back on and said that he would not interrogate the girl right now, pretending to be deceived. The main character realized that the black-haired man already knew that she was not only telling the truth. Killian clarified that now the girl should play something like a scapegoat for Charlotte. The main character stated her assumptions that the deity wants to be treated like a villain. When the young girl wrote this novel, she was only on Charlotte's side and did not even look at Isla. Killian said that he thought the deity was repeating the same day for Isla, but in fact it was Charlotte. The sorcerer put his hand on the girl's head and said that he liked those who had been deceived better because it was more fun. Killian offered the lady to become a sacrificial sheep who was forced to pretend to be a villain and take everything from Charlotte. The black-haired man said that if this is what the deity wants from the girl, then she can become a real villain. The sorcerer added that even the deity himself would not be able to turn a girl into a sacrificial sheep or a scapegoat. The main character said that if everything is so, then for the deity her value will slightly fall into the abyss. Killian lightly slapped the main character on the forehead and said that God does not determine the value of the girl at all. The sorcerer suggested that the lady take away Charlotte's wealth, power, honor, and man, so that the girl's value would disappear. For the main character, it was like stepmothers and folk sisters in fairy tales about Cinderella, which the girl read in her distant childhood. Hanel suggested that when she watched how villains were punished in these fairy tales, she formed a stereotype. The young girl was well aware that the Villainess was not the main character of her novel. Best of all, the heroine in Isla's body realized that it was impossible to take away the place of the main character in the story. The girl suggested that she could become an evil character who would take the place of the main character for herself. The main character decided for herself that she would become more honest and tough than she is now, and would do what she wanted. A black-haired man approached the girl from behind and, untying a tight corset, promised that he would help her. The sorcerer said that everything that makes the girl uncomfortable or dislikes can simply be ignored. The black-haired man assured the main character that everything would be decided by one word of the girl. Colden added that in this way the young girl will not have the option of escaping. The heroine looked carefully at the man when he told her to become not just bad, but a real villain. Killian reminded the girl that she was now being told all this by the one who had declared that he could despise the deity. Hanel was confident that with the help of Killian she would cope with this, so she confidently asked the man to help her. The black-haired sorcerer sat down on one knee and, kissing the girl's palm, promised that he would do it with great pleasure. A lot had happened as soon as he was freed from the noose of Falangay when Hanel was found by the sorcerer Killian. The very existence of this man and his encounter with Isla could in no way be reflected in the original story. The main character was worried about the fact that she drove away Sophie, who was supposed to play an important role in the novel. The young girl told the sorcerer that she was very worried that the noose would return again. According to assumptions, the loop was activated only when Isla interfered with the course of the novel. The main character knew perfectly well that Isla began to act before her first moment of appearance, namely the royal ball. The maids confessed that it was a great happiness for all of them to see the young lady so energetic. The main character said in confusion that the girls talked to her so easily, although they could not utter words out of fear before. The first girl apologized, saying that it seemed to them that the mistress had become much more affectionate lately. The second maid said that they heard from Dobiella that the girl herself injured her forehead, and Lady Isla, on the contrary, wiped the blood. The maid added that it would be great if Dobiella was in this place now. The main character stood in front of the mirror, and the maid said that before coming to the duchies, the girl worked in a sewing workshop. The young girl drew her attention to the fact that today Killian was without a cape, although during the visit Sophie threw it on. The sorcerer said that only by showing their appearance, people with magical abilities doom themselves to a stream of misfortunes. The black-haired man explained that this was the reason why he covered his body with a cloak that restrained magic. The sorcerer revealed that he had many alternatives to replace the magical power. The main character was very surprised when a tattoo appeared on the man's body that could move. Killian said that this mark allows the sorcerer to completely deprive himself of magic in certain cases. The black-haired man said that if the tattoo disappeared even from the depths of the body, it would begin to absorb vital energy. Killian revealed that this is more than that, which he is capable of if he does not want to cause injury to people nearby. The main character gently took Killian by the elbow and anxiously asked if the black-haired man was okay now. The sorcerer pretended not to hear anything and told the young girl that most likely he was just getting old. Hanel said it wasn't funny at all, and Killian put one arm around the girl's cheek and asked her to look at something. The main character unfolded the parchment, and the sorcerer said that this was the mistress's schedule, where she had to get up at 5 in the morning. Killian revealed that instead of the imprisoned maid with dripping, the mistress would be assisted with bathing by assigned servants. The sorcerer said that the girl needed to agree, otherwise he would personally take care of it, and after all, a person like him could hurt the mistress. The main character wondered if her dream of a rich, unemployed life would be destroyed in this way. The sorcerer said that, unlike the deity, he would not insist on the methods he had chosen. Hanel realized that given the divine will of the villain branded on her, it might seem that the sorcerer was controlling her. The man said that he only indicates the direction, but the young girl is obliged to make all decisions on her own. Killian brought the feather to the lips of the main character and said that the mistress could order him if she wanted. The sorcerer was interested in finding out what color a young girl who did not succumb to his magic would be painted after achieving her goals. After that, Killian said that Isla should use everyone's interest and capture the attention of the public at the ball. There was a bully and kitten effect, where a girl fell in love with a bad guy who protected the kitten during the rain. In other words, the villainous Isla had to behave much better than she had before. Even without bringing her behavior to perfection, the girl can easily attract people's attention to her changed persona. However, the main character was upset by the fact that she did not even have signs of a high-ranking lady. Killian said that, to begin with, a lady should ideally know all the rules of etiquette of aristocratic society. The main character had to remember that she should not neglect other people and should not be modest. The black-haired man began to read the rules further, and the young girl wrote everything down on parchment. The main character called Killian's name fictional and asked if the man remembered what he had said to her earlier. Hanel explained that she was talking about the fact that at the ball, she would need to intercept the attention prepared for Charlotte. The main character was well aware that even if she and the blonde wore the same dresses, there would be interest in Charlotte. The young girl told the sorcerer that she was not completely sure, but she knew one good way. Noticing the doubt on the lady's face, Killian said that the reckless actions seemed even more astounding. Gaining confidence, the main character said that she wanted to wear a dress used as pajamas. Killian thought for a moment, and then replied that if the mistress wore her pajamas to the ball, all eyes would definitely be on her. This type of dress was invented by the Queen of France at a time when everyone admired performances. However, the main character was well aware that she was not a king and queen. Killian said that if the lady liked a particular designer, the girl could tell him the name. The sorcerer promised that he could bring anyone to this place, but Hanul grabbed the man's hand and asked him to stop. The main character said that this type of dress does not squeeze the body with a tight corset or decorative insert. The girl enthusiastically added that there was no need to make the skirt unnaturally fluffy in this dress. The black-haired man smiled when he noticed that the young lady looked happy now. The main character blushed when Killian admitted that he was very pleased to look at the girl at such moments. The main character admitted that as a child she wanted to become a designer for a short time, but with age she forgot about her dream. In the novel, Charlotte created a new dress design precisely because Isla had been projecting her desires onto it for 10 years. The main character said with sadness in her voice that dreams are called so because they do not come true. The black-haired man froze when the young girl asked if he had any dreams. Killian replied with a slight smile on his face that he had already forgotten about the existence of something like this. The main character said that in any case, it was not something important, but the sorcerer interrupted the young girl. The black-haired man reminded the girl to ignore everything that could cause her trouble. The main character remembered that after that she had to act in such a way that everything she did not love ended up in an unnecessary world. The girl became scared at the thought that she could personally design a non-existent dress and go to the ball in it. Hannel quietly said that she would definitely be judged, and Killian said that the girl was just bad at prioritizing. The main character asked in confusion what the sorcerer was doing when the black-haired man grabbed her by the shoulders. Killian said that it doesn't matter at all what the others say, because the girl has to do what she wants. The black-haired man said that he would gladly bring any designer with whom the girl wanted to work. The main character thought about it and said that in this case, she had someone in mind. The servant informed the prince that the designer Pollen was now on vacation, and even the search team could not find him. Berner asked that it was possible that they could not understand where the designer working for the imperial family had gone. The servant reported that there were no records of the man's use of the train, ships, and teleporters. Charlotte called out to His Highness and said that she just wanted to add some more jewelry. The blonde realized that this was the strangest day in her life, because everything she wished for did not come true. Charlotte knew that everyone loved her, and if she got into trouble, someone was sure to come to the rescue. The blonde girl was well aware that even if the designer went on vacation, he could not disappear into thin air. Charlotte did not understand at all what exactly she was doing, but men fell in love with her under any circumstances. The girl decided to sneak into the designer's mansion to find answers, but she was immediately noticed by 2 castle guards. The blonde girl with a smile on her face asked if the gentleman knights could accompany her to the place. The young girl was so beautiful and charming that the knights could not resist. The young men immediately took the blonde lady to the designer Pollen and asked the girl to return as soon as possible. Not far from her, Charlotte noticed a dark human silhouette and immediately assumed that it was Pollen who had returned. However, the blonde girl immediately realized that this person looked much stronger and taller than the royal designer. Charlotte really hoped that this man was not actually the kidnapper. The blonde girl froze abruptly when an unfamiliar male voice whispered in her ear that it was time for bed. Charlotte collapsed on the floor from fright and stammered and asked who the man was, because he had just stood in front of her. The black-haired sorcerer said that he was the one the blonde girl should forget. As soon as Killian asked the girl's name, Charlotte realized that she couldn't even move to run away. The sorcerer bit his finger, which immediately bled as soon as the girl introduced herself as Charlotte Angelo. Killian said that although the girl receives God's love, he does not feel any special energy from her. The sorcerer asked in what comfort the young girl had lived until now thanks to this very love. The black-haired man said that it was easier to snatch Charlotte than a frail indoor flower. The blonde girl with tears in her eyes indignantly said that as a stranger she could say such a thing. Killian smirked and said that Charlotte reminded him of a blade of grass very much. The main character held out a parchment with drawings and with a smile asked the man to look at it. The famous designer was trembling with fear and did not understand what he was doing in such a place now. The man was sure that if the king's palace found out that he had helped with the witch's dress, he would definitely not blow his head off. Pollen said that he had already taken an oath to work only for the palace, so he could not fulfill the request of the young mistress. Killian reminded the man that he had already received his consent before he came to this place. The designer replied to the butler in confusion that he remembered this, but not completely. Paulin added in confusion that he believed he was intoxicated at the time, or perhaps asleep, as it could not have happened. The main character knew that bad things are learned faster, so she already imagined what she should do in such a situation. Although Hanul was not very good at heart from her first step as a villain, the girl knew that she had to try. The main character told the designer that if a man does not want to, that nothing can be done about it. The young lady lowered her voice and said with a sly smile on her face that she would not force the man. The main character said that she was ready to provide the designer with a generous reward and complete anonymity. The girl in Isla's body added that no one would know about the creator of this dress and would safely escort the man to the royal palace. The main character wondered if the man would be completely calm in this case. The designer reached out to take the parchment and said that he had no other choice. Paulin unfolded a sheet of paper and began to carefully study the drawing of the future dress. The man admitted that it was the first time in his life that he had seen such a design, and asked if the girl had come up with it herself. Although in fact the creators of the dress were the progenitors from the planet Earth, the main character still finalized the details herself. The young lady said that if you decorate only the skirt with a ruffle, then no more additions will be required. Hanul sincerely did not want her organs to change the location of her organs or break a rib because of the corset. This design was created specifically for the survival of a young girl with pink hair. Paulin knew perfectly well that Isla Mertensia had no equal in rudeness and lack of culture. The man curiously asked why the mistress had not yet used such an incredible gift of hers. The main character said that she would create clothes only when she needed them and when she wanted to wear them. The young girl looked at the sorcerer and asked if the man agreed with her opinion. The black-haired sorcerer smiled and replied to the lady that she was certainly right. Paulin rolled the parchment back and said that the young lady's dress would not be appropriate at the ball, even though it was innovative. The main character haughtily asked, crossing her arms over her chest, why a man is now making such decisions. The designer exhaled tiredly and told the young lady that he didn't decide anything. Paulin said that as a designer, he can see the value of this dress, but high society is opposed to everything new. This was something that Hanul continued to worry about, as she was constantly showered with contempt, neglect, and unhealthy interest. All this happened not only because Hanul moved into the body of the villainess Isla. In the past, the heroine adapted to everyone, but only heard how she was called kind, but now she was not real. The main character said that no matter what fashion is, nothing will suit her as well as this particular dress. The girl in Isla's body asked the designer to just make a dress designed just for her, which would suit her the most. The main character added that, of course, the world-famous designer Paulin will be able to do this. The man in glasses bowed to the young mistress and promised that he would definitely fulfill her request. Thus, the main character was able to get a world designer as the creator of her own dress. As soon as Paulin left, Hanul mentally scolded herself for saying too much to the man, and now the girl was ashamed. The main character immediately replayed the dialogue in her head when Paulin asked why the mistress still does not use her gift. The young girl was helped by the fact that she remembered about the black-haired sorcerer and began to follow his advice. The girl in Isla's body asked Killian how it went, to which the man replied that it was pretty good. The main character mentally attached importance to the fact that Killian was not even surprised, as on the day when the girl chased Sophie away. The sorcerer said that no matter how pitiful a person seems, it is necessary to observe him very carefully. The man added that such a person can target the life of his offender and become a cause for concern. The main character told the black-haired man that she had come up with a great idea regarding a pathetic person. The heroine in the body of Isla went down to the dungeon and told the former personal servant that she was driving the girl away from her estate. The aristocrat said that due to her affection for the girl, she would personally ask her father to write a letter of recommendation. The main character said that she was going to make Sophie a servant in the royal palace for a while. Earlier, Hanul explained to Killian that Charlotte, who received the love of the prince, would become a more tasty morsel for Sophie. The main character said that Sophie, thirsty for revenge, would turn out to be a traitor in any case, and then the girl would give her to someone else. The young lady was sure that this was the only way for the former personal maid to be useful to her. The main character told Sophie that very soon a girl named Charlotte would arrive at the royal palace. The heroine in Isla's body mentally asked the sorcerer not to laugh because the man himself made her like this. Hanel said that Charlotte's family is so poor that His Highness the Prince will personally bring the blonde girl to the palace. Sophie, with a big smile on her face, told the mistress that she would do whatever the girl asked. The main character said that the maid would spread rumors about the life of this girl and sometimes follow her instructions. Killian could no longer hold back his laughter and honestly admitted that he would definitely go crazy with the young mistress. The main character put her index finger to her lips and whispered that the man laugh quietly. The sorcerer stated that he thought that desecrating the deity was the most beautiful thing the young lady did. Killian honestly admitted that he liked the current young girl even more than before. Then the man put his index finger to his lips, indicating that the girl should be quiet. The main character understood that there was no need to look for meaning in this, because Killian was just playing with her as if she were a cute animal. The day before the harvest ball, the maid told Charlotte that the lady now looked very charming. The blonde asked embarrassedly if it was too pretentious, to which the lady replied that the beauty of the girl would overshadow all the jewelry. The maid offered the blonde girl to choose earrings that would be larger for the image. Charlotte said embarrassedly that this ball would definitely be special for her, and the maid said that the girl would outshine everyone there. Sophie added that it is simply amazing that such a luxurious dress was designed by Charlotte with pollen. The maid assured the fair-haired lady that there was no one brighter than Charlotte at the ball. The blonde was sure that she would really be the star of the ball and would receive even more attention than on the day of her debut. The blonde girl was curious to know if she would be able to meet that black-haired, mysterious man again. Charlotte mentally admitted to herself that the stranger was incredibly handsome. Despite his slightly dangerous and repulsive appearance, the man was still able to attract the attention of the blonde girl. Charlotte decided that if she met this butler again at the ball, she would definitely do everything to embarrass the man. The blonde smiled and thanked the new maid for her help, and Sophie said that it was her job. While Charlotte wasn't looking, the maid sneered slyly and said that the mistress was very kind. The main character reminded herself that she had changed a large number of part-time jobs in the service sector. However, even for the girl, there was a particularly unyielding opponent in Isla's body. A maid named Dobiella entered the room, who was the very person for the main character. The maid could not believe that she was honored to help the most beautiful lady in the world with her preparations. The main character concluded that Dobiella was very touched that she wiped her blood, that she stopped trembling at the sight of Isla. The girl asked the maid to make jewelry for her, including for her hair, to match the new dress. Dobiella fell to her knees and exclaimed that she had no right to do such a thing because she was still very young and inexperienced. The main character was confused and caught herself thinking that she was already beginning to be afraid of a blonde girl. Hanel understood that if she really appointed Dobiella as a personal maid, the girl could have a heart attack. The main character said that the girl can remain just a servant who will help her with outfits. The maid's eyes immediately lit up and the girl enthusiastically promised that she would definitely do everything possible. Thus, the main character instructed the maid to prepare the outfit for the upcoming ball. After a while, the Duke's carriage stopped at the gates of the royal palace. The black-haired man gave his hand to the young lady to help the girl go outside. The main character proudly straightened her shoulders and went with her companion straight to the royal ball. The young couple approached the entrance to the palace, where they were supposed to be allowed into the castle, after looking at the list of invited guests. The chief chamberlain of the royal palace said with hatred that the lady was on the list, adding that she had not appeared for a long time. The man asked the girl for the name of the escort, and Killian replied that Sebastian was the second son of Viscount Agate. The chief chamberlain thought for a moment, and then said that it was the first time he had heard of anyone of that name in the family of Agate. As soon as the man said that, as far as he knew, the Viscount had only one child, Killian influenced him. The black-haired man with a sparkling smile said he was a distant relative who had recently been adopted. The main character could not believe that the chamberlain had bought into such a thing when the palace employee was about to look at the list. Hanel shuddered when the chamberlain said that if the Viscount had taken the child to raise him, he would have heard about it. As soon as the black-haired sorcerer asked the name of the castle clerk, the chamberlain immediately replied that his name was Hubert Kingston. With a sly smile on his face, Killian asked the castle employee to tell him about absolutely all his desires. The couple was missed, and Hanul said that Killian's gift was quite useful, and the sorcerer replied that you can always use it. The black-haired man smiled even wider and informed the young mistress that he could use his gift right now. The main character replied to the sorcerer in a calm tone that now there was absolutely no need for them to do so. Once the young girl saw Killian's abilities in real life, the girl was able to roughly understand the principle of operation. The main character said that it is extremely dangerous to use magic because there are people who are only eager to fulfill wishes. Killian did not deny when the mistress said that the man does not use hypnosis, but simply lures into his net and provokes. The disgusting desires that people are so desperate to hide soon become their weakest point to hit. Killian's ability is like a whirlpool that sucks a person in, and once you get into it, there will be no way out. However, the main character was sure that one day people would wake up, realizing that everything that was happening around was nothing more than an illusion. Killian said that usually no one knew what was falling under his spell, and the girl asked if anyone had succeeded. The sorcerer said that this rarely happens, but if the physical or mental state of a person is strong, the spell can be dispelled. The girl knew that the spell could not affect Burner, which meant that there could be problems with the other main characters. If the main character's theory was correct, then the situation could take a rather dangerous turn of events for them. The young girl with pink hair did not understand why Killian offered her to use his unusual abilities. The main character suggested that, in this way, the man just wanted to check how she would act and what she would answer him. The young girl constantly reminded herself that she should not rely too much on the help of this black-haired man. The aristocrat needed to find out the information, so she asked Killian if the spell would work on Charlotte in this case. Hanel shuddered when the sorcerer revealed that there was no point in using them, so he did not follow through with the matter. The main character asked her escort in confusion if the man had already met Charlotte before that moment. Suddenly, however, there was a boom of a bugle, and the young girl realized that they had already arrived in the ceremonial hall of the royal palace. As soon as the aristocrat saw Isla, she haughtily said that the villainess really dared to show up at the ball in her pajamas. The girls began to whisper that nothing had been heard of Isla, that they thought that the girl had finally come to her senses. All the aristocrats present at the ball wore robe dresses, which became popular thanks to Charlotte's actions. Of course, these dresses, decorated with a variety of bows and ruffles, were simply beautiful. However, as befits dresses of the Rococo era, these clothes emphasized all the splendor of the owner with a squeezing corset. It was for this reason that the main character felt boundless freedom in her dress, which she was pleased with. The young girl took a glass of red wine and realized that she had really managed to attract everyone's attention to her person. However, the main character did not understand at all why all the girls looked only at her and did not pay attention to Killian. The black-haired man told the young girl that most could not see her because he hid his presence. The main character shuddered at the suggestion that this man is quite capable of reading all her deep thoughts. Killian said that while people do not pay close attention to him, he is a stone on the road for them. Hanel asked what would happen if the guests began to look at the man, and he replied that anyone could become suspicious. The main character noticed Rob, who was an excellent magician, radiating power and greatness with all his appearance. This sorcerer had sky-colored hair, as well as large, bright blue eyes looking directly at the black-haired man. The main character immediately realized that this was the great wizard Septimus, who is known throughout the kingdom. Suddenly, the young mistress began to panic when she realized that this wizard was an additional protagonist. A man with sky-colored hair with a strange intonation said something about the king from Calum Ratulo. The main character did not understand at all what the additional protagonist was talking about now, and looked at Killian. The young girl immediately noticed the mysterious smile that appeared on her companion's face. Killian said that they needed to talk, and informed the young lady that he had to leave for a while. The main character anxiously asked Killian if everything would be fine, because a great magician approached the man. The black-haired sorcerer turned around and promised the young lady that he would not kill this man called a mage. Hanel mentally exclaimed that what could be a common topic of conversation between an ordinary sorcerer and a great magician. The main character looked at the man with bright blue eyes, who at that moment was looking at her with horror. Hanel noticed that the mage did not cast a spell, did not call the guards or his comrades, but just stood quietly. The main character realized that she could not influence the situation, so she irritated that Killian could go. The black-haired man asked his companion not to think of crying, because he would not be next to the young girl. The main character wanted to stop the sorcerer, but immediately changed her mind and caught herself thinking that she felt a little strange.